Morning, sheeple. Yes. After the events of yesterday, it's time to come out fighting, I think. Our beloved leader was forced to give an interview with that notorious nest of Marxist vipers, Sky News. And one of the things he rightly concentrated on was the fact that the media just don't really give him a chance, yeah? I mean, they're not really playing it fair, and there's that inbuilt Marxist bias in Sky and the BBC and the Mail and the Telegraph, and all they're doing is just reporting the bad things that are happening, yeah? They're just not giving them time. So let's have a look at some of the quotes and see just how right our beloved leader is. But Mr. Jensen went on to moan about the coverage of stories about sleaze and alleged lockdown breaches in Downing Street, suggesting people were not hearing what he had to say on their own priorities. Yes, people are being fed this constant diet about things the government are doing which don't appear to be going very well. And that's not right, is it? Yeah? I mean, imagine thinking that government corruption is in some way something that, you lot would be interested in. You're not really, are you? No, you're very concerned about green taxes, aren't you? Green taxes. You're not concerned about COVID. Green taxes, that's the one. Anyway, repeatedly pressed by Sky News cadre, comrade, on what was going wrong and how he was going to turn things around, Mr. Johnson said, "I think that people are frustrated, and I understand that." See, he understands you. Basically, what's been going wrong is that in the last few weeks, some things have been going very well. But what the people have been hearing is just a constant litany about stuff and politics and politicians and stuff that isn't about them and isn't about the things that we can do to make life better. Yes, all of those stories about things like, for example, government officials breaking the law last year. I mean, that's not really a story, is it? I mean, the government breaking the law isn't really a story. I don't think so. Nothing to see here, folks. No. And yet somehow, magically, all of them, the Trotskyites at the Daily Mail, are banging on about it. Yeah? Anyway, luckily they gave him a few extra seconds of airtime. I'm surprised, though. We'll come on to censorship directly soon. And so, to that extent, of course, you're right. And I think the job of government is to make people like you, that's you, people, interested in the booster rollout and in skills and in housing and everything else that we're doing. And unfortunately, you're totally right. We haven't been able to get the focus on these issues. Yes, they haven't, have they? And why? Why? Because the media won't let them. Now, totemic of this, of course, is Mr. John Redwood, who was cancelled by the BBC viciously because he was going to tell the truth, and they can't allow that. So, let's watch him.
Was it that got the BBC all wound up this morning?
Well, I have no idea. They invited me on for an early interview, which I was happy to do because I was up and about doing things, and agreed it. And then they said, would I just sketch what my views were on various questions they wanted to ask? And shortly after that, they said they weren't going to be doing the live interview, but maybe I could do a pre-record. So I then tweeted this, and then they did do a pre-record. But I'm not sure what it was, but it's not the first time that's happened to me with the BBC. Quite often I've been invited on and then they've wanted to know what I'm going to say, and then sometimes you're not allowed to say it.
Yes, so there you have it. Mr. Redwood did appear on the Today programme an hour later than billed at around 10 a.m, according to the papers. The Marxist broadsheets Pravda, when he said Lib Dem Helen Morgan's victory signalled a longer-term worry about the direction of government and a strong urging of the government to do better. Yeah, do you see what they moved him a bit, which of course they never do ever, unless it's John Redwood, who has a lot to say about how brilliant the government is. Couldn't let him on the air, could we? And then we come to the traitors in our own midst, right? Yeah? I'm thinking about you, Julian Smith. This prompted criticism from fellow Tory MP Tory. Julian Smith, a former government chief whip and ex-cabinet minister who waded into the row to accuse his colleague of an unnecessary slur. Mr. Smith replied to Mr. Redwood on Twitter. Twitter, we know who hangs out on Twitter, don't we? Mobs. Cancelling woke mobs. Just heard you on at BBC R4 today. Wasn't the BBC just deciding how to run its own show? Usual Tricks is an unnecessary slur and just corrodes trust in another UK institution on the basis of no fact. You got on their show. What is the actual issue? Well, the issue, obviously, is that he couldn't say exactly what he wanted to at the time he wanted to for as long as he wanted to without the BBC apparently running a show that they need to do. Yeah? I mean, where will this censorship end, eh? Julian Smith, I've looked at his voting record, and he often hasn't voted exactly with the government, because instead of saying consistently voted, it sometimes says mostly. The evidence is there, folks. Anyway, for you lot, I think what you need to do is buckle down and make sure that the only information you're receiving is the correct ones, okay? So if you do happen to open up the Times or the Sun or the Express or the Telegraph or the Daily Mail, and it contains a story which looks like it might be criticising in some way the government at all, I want you to put it down, take it outside and burn it, okay? I think you can only basically these days realistically watch GB News, and I might just about allow you to watch talk radio or listen to talk radio, but not Julia Hartley-Brewer, because she sometimes disagrees with our beloved leader. So I think that's your takeaway for Saturday. Get on with it.